What if I told you that the real secret behind why compounding seems like magic for the wealthy isn't simply about putting money aside and waiting, but about the way they bend time, access, and opportunities to make compounding work at an entirely different scale than it does for the rest of us? Compounding, as most people are taught, is described as a neat little math trick. Earn some interest, reinvest it, let it snowball, and one day you'll have a nice pile of money. But that version of the story is the children's version of compounding, the kind you read about in high school textbooks or hear in generic financial advice videos. The real story, the one the rich actually live by, is far more powerful, far more unfair, and far more revealing about how wealth truly multiplies. For the average person, compounding starts with a savings account, maybe a 401k or an index fund, and the results are modest. After years of discipline, you might double or triple your money, but the pace feels painfully slow, almost like watching grass grow. For the wealthy, compounding doesn't just apply to their bank accounts. It applies to their businesses, their investments, their networks, and even the way their influence itself grows. Meaning, they're not compounding dollars, they're compounding systems. When you look at how billionaires or multimillionaires accelerate wealth, you'll notice a crucial detail. They don't depend on 5% interest rates or 7% stock market averages. They put their capital in places where returns can be 20%, 50%, or even exponential. And when those returns roll in, they don't cash out to buy liabilities. They pour that capital back into new opportunities that spin off even larger returns, creating loops of growth that look almost alien compared to the linear compounding the average person experiences. Imagine two people starting with very different tools. One person invests $1,000 in a savings account at 5% and earns just $50 after a year, while a wealthy investor places $1 million into a private equity deal that doubles in 3 years. The difference isn't just in the outcome, it's in the velocity of growth. And velocity is where the true power of compounding hides. And here's the part no one explains. Velocity multiplies not just money, but access. Once you have access to faster compounding vehicles, the doors that open give you new deals, new tax advantages, and new partnerships. And those advantages themselves compound. It's why the rich seem to grow richer while the middle class feels stuck running in place. They're not playing the same game with the same rules. They're playing on an entirely different board where compounding acts like a lever instead of a ladder. Think about the role of ownership. When you own shares in a business that grows, your wealth compounds not because of small interest payments, but because the value of the entire business compounds in scale. One store becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, and suddenly your equity multiplies without you needing to trade more of your time. This is why Warren Buffett, for example, doesn't rely on a paycheck. His wealth compounds inside companies, and each dollar he invests is like planting a tree that grows more branches, which in turn grow more trees. But here's the truth that gets lost in mainstream financial advice. Compounding only reveals its true power when paired with leverage, and leverage is something the wealthy master with precision. Leverage isn't just debt. It's using other people's money, other people's time, and even other people's knowledge to accelerate growth. A wealthy investor might use a bank loan to buy an apartment building, but instead of repaying it out of pocket, they let tenants pay rent. And that rent covers the loan, builds equity, and throws off profit all at once. Suddenly, compounding isn't about waiting 30 years. It's about accelerating wealth every single month. Now combine that with tax advantages. While the average worker compounds slowly in retirement accounts taxed at withdrawal, the wealthy shelter gains in trusts, real estate loopholes, or tax-deferred vehicles, meaning their compounding is uninterrupted by the biggest wealth killer of all, tax drag. Every dollar saved from taxes is another soldier added to their compounding army, fighting year after year, multiplying in silence. And the compounding doesn't stop with money. It extends to relationships, brand power, and credibility. A wealthy entrepreneur who builds a reputation compounds influence. Their name alone attracts better deals, smarter partners, and bigger opportunities. And because trust compounds like interest, each win multiplies their ability to secure the next one. This invisible form of compounding, social capital, is often more powerful than financial capital because money follows trust and credibility. The average person doesn't get invited to private deals or pre-IPO investments because they don't have that compounding credibility. But the wealthy, by consistently reinvesting in their networks, gain exponential access to opportunities that remain invisible to the masses. The secret truth is that compounding is less about patience and more about positioning. Where you place your capital, your energy, and your influence determines whether compounding feels like crawling through mud or soaring on a rocket. That's why you see stories of self-made millionaires who seem to come out of nowhere, when in reality, they've been quietly compounding knowledge, relationships, and small wins for years, until suddenly the snowball becomes an avalanche and everyone calls it luck. But luck is just compounding disguised. And here's something that might shock you. Compounding has a dark side, because just as wealth compounds upward, poverty compounds downward. A late payment leads to a fee, which leads to higher interest rates, which damages credit scores, which makes borrowing more expensive, which reduces opportunity, creating a vicious cycle that compounds in reverse. This is why the gap between rich and poor doesn't just stay wide, it widens. The wealthy feed their compounding machines with fuel from every angle, while the average household fights fires that burn away their compounding potential before it can ever take hold. The solution, though difficult, lies in shifting perspective. Instead of focusing on saving pennies, think about planting seeds that grow trees, which then plant more seeds. Ask yourself not just how to earn interest, but how to create assets that multiply, and how to leverage time, knowledge, and even small networks into systems that can scale beyond your own hours of labor. The rich understand this intuitively, and that's why compounding isn't magic for them. It's math, it's access, and it's discipline, executed on a level most people never even realize exists. And if you're listening to this, it means you've taken the first step by questioning the surface-level version of compounding. And that's where the real shift begins. Once you see compounding as more than a slow trickle of interest, you start to notice how everything in life, habits, skills, relationships, health, wealth, either compounds for you or against you. That awareness alone separates those who stay trapped from those who break free. And it explains why the wealthy never stop feeding their compounding engines, because they know that every day they delay is a day of exponential growth lost forever. So the next time you hear that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, remember this. For the average person, it's a gentle slope, but for the rich, it's a mountain of acceleration, fueled by scale, access, and leverage. And the only real question is whether you'll keep climbing the slow hill, or figure out how to tap into the rocket fuel that makes compounding unstoppable.